Somewhere in Minnesota tonight, a temperature record that has stood since before your grandparents were born just fell. Not by 1 degree, not by a fluke, by enough that meteorologists are checking their instruments twice. And it's not just Minnesota. Stay with me, because this is happening in 5 states at once, right now, while you're watching this. You've lived through hot summers. Everybody has. But this week is different. This week, cities that have never, not once in over 100 years of record keeping, hit certain temperatures. Hit them anyway. That's not hot. That's the climate doing something it has never done in front of a human being with a thermometer. Let's go city by city, because the numbers get worse as we go. Billings, Montana. Sunday afternoon, the temperature hit 111 degrees. The old record, set in July 2002, was 108. Gone, not close, broken by 3 full degrees. Miles City, Montana, wasn't far behind, 115 degrees. Their old record from 2012 was 111, also gone. Now here's the one that should really get your attention. International Falls, Minnesota, a city where the old daily record was set back in 1983, is projected to hit 100 degrees. If it does, that will be the first 100-degree day that city has recorded in more than a century. 100 years. Think about that. Every summer for 100 years, that city never crossed that line. Until this week. And this isn't limited to one small pocket of the country. Extreme heat warnings are stacked up across a stretch of the map that runs from Southern California, through Utah, across Montana, and all the way into Minnesota. That's not a regional heat wave. That's a chunk of the country roughly the size of Western Europe, all baking under the same system at the same time. Here's a detail that puts it in perspective. Billings had never, in its entire recorded weather history, seen a temperature above 108 degrees. That record had survived 24 straight summers. It didn't just get broken this week. It got broken by 3 degrees in a single afternoon. That's the kind of jump meteorologists usually see once in a career, not once in a random Sunday. So here's the question. Nobody's really answering out loud yet. If records that have survived 100 years are falling in a single week, what does that tell us about the ones that are supposed to hold for the next 100? Let's actually look at what's driving this. This isn't just a heat wave. Meteorologists are watching a heat dome, a zone of high pressure that traps hot air underneath it, like a lid on a pot, sitting over the Intermountain West and slowly sliding east. Under a heat dome, the air can't escape upward. It just keeps compressing and heating, day after day, with no relief overnight. That's the part people miss. It's not the daytime highs that are the most dangerous. It's that the temperature isn't dropping enough at night for your body or your house to recover before the next day starts all over again. Extreme heat warnings are already up from Southern California to Montana to Minnesota. And by midweek, this same dome is expected to push into the northeast, meaning Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, and Boston could all be looking at 90-degree afternoons with heavy humidity on top. You might be thinking, okay, but hasn't this country seen brutal heat waves before? The Dust Bowl years, the heat wave of 1936 that killed thousands. Summers your own parents talked about. Yes, this country has survived brutal heat before. But here's the difference researchers keep pointing to. Those historic heat waves were mostly single, isolated events. Brutal, then over. What's being tracked now is a pattern of these events stacking up more frequently, in more places, breaking records that had survived even those older extreme summers. In other words, this isn't as bad as it's ever been. In several of these cities, it's now officially worse than anything on record, including the years your grandparents lived through. And heat isn't the only thing riding along with this system. Hot, dry conditions don't just make you uncomfortable. They make everything around you more dangerous. Across the Northwest, fire weather danger is climbing fast. Dry ground, gusty winds, and record heat is exactly the recipe that turns a small spark into something uncontrollable. Nationally, this year has already seen close to 39,000 fires burn more than 3.5 million acres. To put that in perspective, that's an area larger than the state of Connecticut, burned before the middle of summer even arrives. Right now, more than 15,000 firefighters are working 44 large fires across the country, backed by hundreds of engines and over 100 helicopters. That's not a small local response. That's a wartime-sized mobilization, happening quietly while most of the country is focused on the heat itself. And in parts of southern Arizona, the same weather pattern is producing monsoon thunderstorms, strong enough to cause damaging wind gusts and blowing dust that can cut visibility to almost nothing on the highway, turning an ordinary evening drive into a genuine hazard within minutes. One weather system, record heat, fire risk, and dangerous storms, all at the same time, all connected, all traced back to the same dome of high pressure sitting over the West. Now here's the part that matters most if you're watching this from home. Heat doesn't affect everyone equally. That's not opinion. That's how the human body works as it ages. Your body's ability to sense rising internal temperature and to sweat effectively to cool itself down naturally declines with age. That means the danger point can arrive before you even feel like you're struggling. Add in something as common as a blood pressure medication, and your body's ability to regulate heat can be affected even further, often without you realizing it in the moment. This is why, during heat waves like this one, the people most likely to end up in an emergency room aren't usually the people out running in it. It's the people sitting quietly at home, in a house that's gotten hotter than they realized, telling themselves they're fine. If you know someone in that situation this week, even a phone call to check in matters more than you'd think. There are a few simple things worth knowing. Fans alone stop being effective once the air temperature climbs past the mid-90s. At that point, a fan is just moving hot air around, not cooling you down. A cool shower or a few minutes with your feet in cold water does more in that situation than any fan will. And if air conditioning isn't available at home, most cities open public cooling centers during heat warnings like this one. A couple of hours there in the hottest part of the afternoon can make a real difference. None of this is complicated. It's just easy to forget in the moment, especially if the heat creeps up gradually over several days instead of hitting all at once. So let's put this all together. Records that stood for over 100 years, broken, not in one city, in several, in the same week, by the same weather system. A heat dome that isn't just raising the daytime high, but refusing to let the temperature drop at night, which is often the more dangerous part. And a ripple effect touching fire risk, dangerous storms, and public health all at once, from Montana to Minnesota to the East Coast. This is what a record-breaking week actually looks like when you follow it all the way through. Not just one hot day, but a whole system reshaping itself in real time. We'll be tracking this system as it moves east through the week. If you want to see where it goes next, subscribe so you don't miss the update. And if you're in one of the areas we mentioned tonight, let me know in the comments. I want to hear what it's actually like on the ground right now.